Hey folks, and welcome to the Hearthstone discussion. I have our two local Hearthstone players, Ozzy and Steve, with me. Let's cut to the meat of this. Recently, I started playing Hearthstone, got into it, and I have so many questions that the tutorial isn't really explaining to me. So I guess I'm going to start off with the most basic and vague question. What should I be doing? Should I be building multiple decks? Should I be building one deck? How should I start this?
I would say that really depends on what your goals of Hearthstone are. If you wanna tinker around and have fun with the game and kind of play it, wring out as much enjoyment as you can out of it, and you just want to experiment with different decks and you don't care how high you rise on the ranks, then yeah, by all means, keep all your cards and build a bunch of different decks and just see how it goes and have some fun. If you're really trying to be competitive right out of the gate, you probably need to decide on one or two classes that are going to be sort of your power classes, because that means you're going to sort of open yourself up to dusting cards that you don't need for other classes, and that'll give you the fuel you need to make your one or two chosen classes much stronger.
I would say that once you get in and you get through the whole intro with Jaina and the mage, that's probably as good a place as any to start, just because the mage has such friendly cards for newcomers and beginners, and really the mage is kind of a strong class in herself. Once you kind of get the hang of how the mechanics work, you pretty much just kind of start jumping into some of the other classes, and some of them take a little more time to learn than others, but it doesn't take that much time. It's really kind of an easy game to just get the hang of, especially if you've never really been into the Warcraft series like I have. Like, I'm kind of a Warcraft newcomer, but you don't really need to kind of get the backstories. Just jump in and understand how the mechanics work.
So, going off on that, there are three modes, I would say, that are really interesting. Play, arena, and the single player stuff. And I'm trying to build a deck here, and I don't know what. Should I be spending money on arena? Should I be spending money or coins on the single player campaigns? Should I only be focusing on just playing and going into ranked? Like, what should I be doing with that?
See, this is a very tricky question. I think that again, it depends on your deck goals. There are a few things that you definitely do and definitely do not want to do. You definitely do want to hit your dailies. That's the most reliable source of gold. If you get a daily quest that's only worth 40 gold, there are enough quests that are worth above that now that you should always just go into your quest log and try to exit it. And if you exit it and you get another 40, then whatever. But it's always worth trying. And you definitely should not be going into arena as a beginner. You can if you want. It's a fun mode. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those, depending on what you want to get out of the experience kinds of things. If you just want to have fun with Hearthstone, then arena is definitely a way to do that. It's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite modes. But at the same time, the way that the rewards in arena work, you really need to get 4 to 5 wins before you start to come out ahead. And arena is very competitive, and it's hard to get there. Even for experienced players, sometimes I don't make it to 4 to 5 wins. So the idea that a beginning player, unless you're some kind of Hearthstone savant, the idea that a beginning player would immediately pick up on arena and just be able to what they call go infinite, where you make your money back, the arena investment back every time you play, you're probably not going to be able to do that. So if you want to maximize your rewards, you really want to stick with single player, probably casual or ranked. Ranked, it will match you with people around your skill level usually. And yeah, that's probably the best way to sort of maximize your gold. The single player adventures are really worth investing in if you look at the wings and look what cards are in it. And again, if you sort of have a deck in mind that you want to build and you're like, okay, well, I need this specific type of card to do what I want to do with this deck, and you figure out which wing of which adventure will do that for you, then I would say invest in that.
There's so many good cards in the single player campaigns. I mean, yeah, you could go through rank and you could do your dailies and you could just buy decks for 100 coins, and I still do that because God knows I'm not gonna touch arena mode even after having played the game for over a year, just because there's so much randomness in arena that it's hard to come out with more than a couple of wins. But so many of the strongest cards are in the single player adventure. so many that you'll see commonly, like your Sludge Belcher, your Health Dizad, and the campaigns aren't that hard that you can't just finish them in a couple of days. So I'd say just save up the 700 gold or however much you need, and if build up some confidence through playing the ranked mode, and once you get into the single player campaigns and get those cards, then you might start to feel a little more confidence in your deck.
There are also cards, it's worth saying, since we're sort of touching on Arena very slightly here, it's also worth pointing out, cards can be different qualities in Arena than they are anywhere else. In constructed decks, which is the normal ranked and casual play modes, cards are very much reliant on synergy. Working together, you want to see, if you see a card that like really syncs up really well with another card, then that's really good for you. So when we're reviewing cards, we usually look at their synergies and say this is really good, it'll work in this kind of deck and things like that. In Arena, it's a completely different evaluation structure where synergy doesn't matter, and in fact synergy is usually a detriment because cards that have synergy with other cards are usually underpowered in other ways to make up for that deficit. So what you're looking for in Arena is cards that just have baseline good stats, or baseline good effects that take effect and trigger immediately when playing it on the board, or as a death rattle when it gets killed. You don't need things that work well with other cards. That's not what you're looking for in Arena, because chances are you're not going to be able to draft something that does work with it.
Now, going off of cards, because this is something that I've been playing for, I want to say like 2 weeks now, and a lot of the problems that I have when I'm playing ranked or when I'm playing a normal game is that I will lose a lot, and not because I'm getting outplayed. It's by purely the simple fact of the matter is my opponent has better cards than me. I basically only have a basic deck with my decks right now, and I'm seeing all of these like Naxxramas cards being played, the League of Explorer cards getting played, and it's getting to a point where I don't have that much time to commit to Hearthstone right now. I view it as a secondary game for me, which is exactly what I want it to be. Should I be buying cards to keep up with people?
You don't have to. Obviously, this is one of the criticisms of Hearthstone, which I think is fairly valid. People are saying it's, the more adventures they come out with, the more expansions they come out with, it gets harder and harder for new players to keep up with sort of the old hands. Even people who, may not necessarily be extremely good and usually hover around the bottom of the ranks have still been playing for long enough that they have all these good cards. So that's definitely a criticism. One thing that I would say is that there is something to be said for budget decks. If you go onto sites like Hearthstone or Tempo Storm and search for something like budget deck, there are deck builders out there that specifically look for ways to build a strong, sort of plausible, playable deck that doesn't cost that much money, doesn't cost that much gold, uses mostly basic cards. They'll usually list the dust cost. If you have this much dust, you can build this deck, all of the things that you would actually have to build. And those decks are viable. There are ways to get higher in the ranks if you play them correctly. It's just a matter of sort of learning the ins and outs of those decks and how to maximize their efficiency.
And not to jump ahead, but one of the most viable decks, the Face Hunter, is pretty much just budget cards. They're literally just 1, 2, 3 mana cards, and they dominate more than half the time. I mean, they're pretty effective.
Yeah, Face Hunter and Zoo Warlock, or Zoolock as we really affectionately call it. Those are two extremely common budget decks that use mostly low cost cards, and by low cost I mean low mana cost, but also low dust cost. They use mostly low cost cards, and they basically just overwhelm the opponent. Usually you can reach a pretty good rank with those things if you play them well, and also I think Zoo and Face Hunter are pretty instructive for new players just to learn what minion trading is all about, and sort of how the flow of a game tends to work.
Now, going off of that, because this brings up to my final question, which may have to be a video in and of itself, because I don't know how long you guys are going to take to answer this question. You're talking about Zoolock and Face Hunters as good decks, but I was reading into Zoolock because I'm Warlock is my main deck, and a lot of the websites are like, Zoolock is great, but not for competitive. It's good, but it only will get you so far. So say if I'm someone who wants to get somewhat competitive with my decks, should I be wasting my time on a Face Hunter or Zoo deck? Should I be rushing to make a Secret Paladin deck or blow all my dust on Reno Jackson? Because that seems to be like he is in the meta now. Like he is the meta, it seems. So, but then my other question is that if I'm rushing to get to a Secret Paladin deck or to a Reno Jackson deck, what happens when it becomes out of the meta? Did I just waste my entire time trying to build that deck?
That's really what I was about to... As soon as you started asking that, I was about to mention pursuing something that's sort of top tier right now is not necessarily, but might end up being a wasted effort because by nature of Hearthstone being an online game and people net decking and things like that, the meta just evolves extremely quickly. Some decks will stay on the top for months, as we saw with what we called Patron Warrior. But most of the time, they sort of waft and wane. You know, the Secrets Paladin is ahead right now. It'll probably stay somewhere in the top tier for a while, but it's not going to be the number one for months and months and months. So, in general, I would just say, like, play what you like to play. But as far as being competitive in Hearthstone, wanting to reach a competitive advantage, you have to sort of set realistic expectations for how competitive you want to be, because the community around Hearthstone sort of acts as if you've never made it to Legend, you're crap. But that is not true. There are lots of people who would never make it to Legend, myself included. If you make it to rank 5, for example, you're within like the top 1% of players, things like that. Like there are still like upper tiers beyond Legend that you are still very good, and that still counts for something. And Legend is really reserved for the people that, if you reach that level, you should really be looking into, doing this professionally, like taking part in competitions, maybe trying to make it to BlizzCon for the World Championships, things like that. So don't think that you have to reach that top tier to be considered a competitive player.
Don't overthink it. Just kind of go at your own pace, and really, as much as the cards matter, also your own instincts matter. Like once you get the hang of minion trading and knowing when to go for the face and all that stuff, you start to make better use of the cards, because you could have some of the best cards in the game and it won't really matter if you don't know what to do with them or you don't know how to use them. So just go at your own pace. Just try and learn by experience.
Right, and the other thing to keep in mind, since this is sort of a basic overview of Hearthstone, is that this is a game that, when it comes down to it, like a lot of card games, this is a game about math and stats. And what you're generally looking for, whether it's constructed or arena or anything, is just card value and favorable trades. If you can get a 2-for-1 off of a minion, that's almost always what you want to do. So always be looking for ways to maximize your favorable trades, and if you just sort of have that as your guiding principle, that you want to be maximizing value and looking at the math and sort of crunching the numbers, you'll really benefit from it.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been incredibly enlightening. I don't want to have this video go any further, so we will have to continue this discussion on a later date in a later video. So Steve, Ozzy, thank you so much. Folks at home, thank you for listening and watching. For more content like this, be sure to head over to shacknews.com. Hey folks, Andrew here, and we're going to be talking about Hearthstone. I have two of our
Let me stop you
local...
there.
God damn it!
You've done this before, and I let it go. It's not Hearthstone.
It's Hearthstone.
No one says that.
Hearthstone?
Hearthstone.
I have a few friends at Blizzard that
Home
said
is
both
where
are
the
technically
hearth is.
acceptable, but everybody says Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Hearthstone.
No one says. If you start out your video saying Hearthstone, people are gonna be like, click.
Thumbs down.
Fine, Hearth. All right.
Hearthstone, okay.
I didn't play World of Warcraft for 8 years. No. It's fine. I haven't stared at a Hearthstone for literally all that time. But it's okay. Okay. No, let's let these young blood Hearthstone players tell me how to pronounce it.
Like the outtakes at the end.